Okay, if you're like me, you probably just were asked to be part of a booster club program. Question is, what is a booster club? What does a booster club do? What roles would I play in a booster club board, and what am I responsible for? And how do I do all the things I'm supposed to do? Don't worry, we're here to help. We're going to give you a couple of ideas, some things that you could be able to do as a booster club board to be able to do what it is that you've been asked to do, which is support your kids' programs. My name is Corban Tenney. I'm the owner and CEO of Rebooster. Rebooster was formed to help support booster clubs. I myself was asked to be part of a booster club board, and when I first got started, I had no clue what I was doing, right? I was asked to be the treasurer. In this case here, I'd done some books before because I owned a business, but I had no clue what being a treasurer all entailed. There's so much that a treasurer needed to do in this case, and I had no clue. As the treasurer, I had specific roles that I was supposed to fill, and I had to do my job plus the treasurer and be able to support a program that was huge. We had almost 300 kids in our football program at this school. So there was a big responsibility as being part of this program. So when I started Rebooster, it was actually after my experience being on this board. There were so many things that we did as a board that changed the way that we manage and handle a booster club. And in doing so, that actually helped to really improve some of the things that we did in regards to fundraising, in regards to support, in regards to concession stands. There's so many different things that we did that really helped to automate a lot of that processes. And we were able to then turn that over to the next board as we left and moved into a different role. How I really got started was I had a conversation with a good friend of mine from up in Prescott who was an athletic director. And when I told her my experience as a Booster Club board member, she asked me, is there any way that you can help us out? I said, well, what do you mean? What's going on? They said, right now, our Booster Club program is a nightmare. We have all these parents that, try to help support these programs, but they have no clue what they're doing. And you have everybody putting all their time and effort into football, but they're forgetting about all the other sports. And so I said, well, tell us a little bit about your organizations. She said, well, there's more than 4 or 5 teams that have a 501c3. And I said, well, are you sure they have a 501c3? And then she said, yeah, of course, I think so. Well, we went through and we looked at the status of each one of those 501c3s, and almost 4 out of the 5 were not actually 501c3s, hadn't filed taxes for quite a while, and there's a lot of different problems that were going along with that. She also, as an athletic director, was struggling with the potential of risk, like fraud and theft within those boards. And so what I did, I said, well, let's look at how we have the oversight. Is there any oversight? And she said, really, technically, there's not. And so what we did is we took a group of 4 people. One was a business owner, really great guy. We took a gal that was in accounting. She was an accountant. She was amazing. We took a gal that was a marketer. We had made sure that she was involved in this. And we had a vice president that would really help to support the president. And we created what we called an umbrella booster club board. Now, this umbrella booster club board was the oversight, right? They were the ones that had the 501c3 status. They're the ones that filed all the reports. They're the ones that started to do all the taxes. And in doing so, they then said, well, all these little sports underneath it, if they want to be part of this, they can actually dissolve their 501c3s and form underneath this umbrella board. Of the program, there's 22 sports in that case, about 18 decided that they wanted to do that. By the end of that year, all 22 had joined the Umbrella Booster Club board. I asked her, and about a year after we had kind of formed this, and I'm not even thinking, I just asked, well, how's things going? Because I hadn't reached out to him for a while. And she came out and she said, this was the best decision we've ever made as a program, and this is the best decision I've made as an athletic director to do this program. It's helped us to be completely organized. It's helped us to have oversight and compliance on all the 501c3 rules. Our banking relationships that we formed for this program has been perfect for us, and there's been no theft, no fraud. I mean, it's just an amazing setup. That's what she told me. And I said, well, that's fantastic. What are some other things that I could be able to do to help? And she said, well, can you help with fundraising? And I said, yeah, sure. She says, funny thing is we went from raising $40,000 a year. With this new board, we've almost raised $400,000 this year. We want to increase that because we've got a lot of things that we need to pay for. And we love the fact that we have a budget that we can do this and support all these teams. And so what I did is I said, all right, let's look at this current situation. What is it that you guys offer? And so we went through their whole entire process. And then I had athletic directors and other types of other teams and so forth coming to me and saying, hey, how'd you do this with Prescott? And I said, well, in this case here, it really came down to the overall structure. So what we did is we worked with a lot of these schools and we formed these umbrella booster club boards. We got them set up with operational structures that really worked and that had the ability to be successful and move forward. Then it came up to, well, how do we do our fundraising? So what I did is I asked these sponsors, previous sponsors, people that had spent quite a bit of money with the program, and I asked, what'd you get out of this program? What'd you get out of your sponsorship? And of the 25 that I interviewed, every single one of them said nothing. And I said, what do you mean nothing? You got a banner on the field. They said, we didn't get any business from it. We saw the banner. It was fun to hear our name over the loudspeaker and see our banners out on the field, but we got nothing from it. And I said, well, that's interesting. We're really trying to put your name out there. Well, the problem is that what we were finding is that those banners were getting to the people at the time that it's not necessary for them. It didn't give them a reason to go use their specific service, right? It might have given them a thought pattern, but they might not need their services at that time. And so I said, well, let's look at how you wanted to be involved. What is it that you would love to be able to do with this program that will allow you to be able to get the most out of this sponsorship? The tax deduction is nice, but most of these companies, they didn't need a tax deduction, right? And so what I did is we looked at it and we said, okay, how do you want to interact with our school? We've got thousands of kids here, right? And both on the big schools and smaller schools, which still have pretty big numbers, and they're all connected to parents and the community out around them. How would you like to have your business in front of them and actually have some sort of a value come from this sponsorship? They told us that they wanted to be able to help support these kids to allow them to know that our industry that we built our businesses on is a viable solution for these kids, or a viable option for these kids when they get out of high school. They're not being taught in high school how to be able to get these jobs. They're taught what the jobs are, right? And so they're saying, look, we're telling the kids that, hey, you don't have to go out and have a degree in our industry to be able to get in here. There might be a requirement for a degree, but to get into this path, there's a backstory. There's a blueprint to get into the industry and to have success with it. And I said, well, that's actually a really good idea. I said, have you spoke with any of the programs? They said, no. And I said, well, I know that there's CTE programs and there's clubs and all sorts of things in there. How would you like to be in front of them and connected to them? And they said, we would love to do that. Right? That would be something that we'd love to be part of. And so I said, okay, let's look at how we did this. So even with one of our sponsors is the one that actually helped, and we're going to be interviewing her in one of our later episodes, but she kind of came up with this idea of a futures club, okay? A future contractors club, a future restaurant owners club, a future entrepreneur. There are a lot of different things that these kids want to do, and these are their futures. And so what we did is we worked with the schools to say, hey, look, if you already have a path, a way to be able to connect with these kids, let us be able to connect the businesses that are already in that path. And let us help these kids to be able to get in that specific industry. And so what we've done is we've built out these futures clubs at these high schools, and we introduced the sponsors to those clubs. The ways that they do that is either in a podcast like we're talking about, what we're doing here with Blueprints and Backstories. We're also having them go out and actually have in-person meetings with these kids, right? They're having meetings, or they're having off-campus events where maybe they're learning how to do some of these specific things, right? We're connecting these businesses, and they're helping to give these kids a blueprint for the success that they want in the future, right? And they're also knowing, what types of things should I learn? What colleges should I go in this case? Can I do what I want to do with this specific path and with the budgets that I'm currently limited to or have at my disposal? So we developed all this. We got to the point where we started to really get some excitement from companies and so forth. And they said, hey, look, we would love to be part of this. That's where our sponsors come in. What I'm doing here is Blueprints and Backstories podcast, where we introduce some of these sponsors to you and to the community so you understand who these people are, what their path to success was, what was their blueprint to success. We want to know their backstory. We want to know how they got to where they are. Right? It doesn't just all of a sudden just show up and saying, hey, like, I want to start a business in this specific industry. They started from the bottom, and they started to see success, and they grew to the point where eventually they own their own businesses. And a lot of these kids want to do the same thing, but they don't know how to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do in Blueprints and Backstories is we're going to introduce you to these people. They're going to tell us their backstories. We're going to give them the opportunity to be in front of the community and share what it is that they did to get to the success, right? And then we would ask you guys to share this with everybody else, right? They've sponsored, they've actually donated money to the programs that your kids are in. In this case here, we want to make sure that we show them love, right? If they have a specific industry that you have an interest in, these are the companies you want to go to, because they're the ones that have put their time and effort into being able to help support your kids. We want to be able to have brand loyalty. The way that we do that is by connecting the value of that sponsorship to the value these kids have, and understanding that this donation helped to support this program. We want to be able to connect that. When we have a need for a specific product, we know exactly who to go to, because these are the people that actually showed support for our programs in the past. All right, so come back. We're going to have quite a few really great episodes. We just aired our first one with Ridge Wilson, and it was awesome. So excited to be able to have him on our podcast. Next week, we're going to be interviewing a gal named Sarah Alvarado. She is awesome. She's from Cal Portland, and we're really excited to have her on. She was the gal that I had this conversation with that gave me the idea of these future clubs. We're going to interview her. We're going to ask her a bunch of questions on where she thinks this program's going to be able to go, and how we're going to be able to help to support the kids in the programs and then the kids in the community. So come back, visit us. Make sure you subscribe to the link below. We want to have as many people as we can watching these videos and ensuring that the word gets out and that we're sharing the love for those that are supporting our kids. Thanks, and we look forward to having you part of our program. If you are interested in being interviewed, if you want to be part of this, there's going to be a link down below that we're going to put there to allow you to go in, register your company, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get you on the schedule so that you can be able to do an interview with us and be able to support our kids. Thanks, and we look forward to talking with you.